The following Truth Barista podcast is a High Beam Ministry production.
We're always focusing on perfection and whole things, but nothing can be whole. The reality is, things can be beautiful in their brokenness. So for me, sometimes it's not necessary that we get fixed. It's not necessary to be stuck together or glued together with gold or whatever. A piece is good enough. A piece of it, a piece of life. It's good enough. Struggles in life, they're part of our journey. There's two sides to it. You could say, whoa, she failed at bringing up her family, she had a broken marriage. You can heap it up, and there can be shame, and there can be all those things. And the other side of it, you've got this amazing journey that you're living it out, and you're a survivor, and you're carrying through it all, and which is the more valuable, which is more purposeful. If we were too scared to fail, we wouldn't even attempt anything. We wouldn't even be brave or have the courage to live out this life. So we work through our failures, we survive, but something new comes out of it. And the more you fail, the more you succeed. And instead of giving up, you go on, that you experience the momentary prospect of some slight progress. Suddenly you have the feeling, be it an illusion or not, that something new has opened up.
Welcome to the Erzatz Coffee Shop. This is Jay, your Truth Barista, and I'm serving up a steamy cup of God's truth for the average Joe. You can catch me and this podcast on my websites, truthbarista.com, all one word, truthbarista.com, and highbeamministry.com. That's HIGHBEAM ministry.com, as in car high beam. We're shining the light of God's truth on the road ahead.
Well, Truth Barista, here's your coffee like you like it.
Oh, thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Wow. What is with you?
Things are just, I'm just kind of wrestling with some things here at the coffee house and in life in general. I mean, the delivery didn't come in today like it was supposed to, and I've got some fixing issues around here. And, it's just the usual kind of troubles that come by in life.
Truth Barista, I can't believe it. Of all people that I know, you have problems and you allow those problems to affect you. I can't believe it.
Oh, you foolish man. Do you think I'm perfect or something?
Well,
that doesn't happen in this life, I'll tell you that. But, it does kind of remind me, I've got this article that I've been thinking about too, and it just happened to streamline with this morning's event. Do you mind if I share it with you?
What's it called?
Great article. It's written by a guy named Robert Schumacher, and it was in the ChristianPost.com, and it's Perfect Christians Wear Me Out. Isn't that a great title? Perfect Christians Wear Me Out. Let me read you a little portion of this, because I think it's just brilliant, okay? To be honest, it just really hits me where I'm at today, okay?
Okay.
So Robert writes, you've met them, unfortunately. Every time you talk to them, their lives just couldn't be any better. Their kids are perfect. Their jobs are perfect. Their chocolate chip cookies come out of the oven perfect every time. Not a spiritual hair is out of place, and God has rained down blessings that overflow into every nook and cranny of their existence. Their Facebook and other social media accounts tell you as much every day. If your Christian life isn't running on the same smooth rails as theirs, well, it's because you either have sin in your life or not enough faith. And yes, I actually had one guy tell me this. Sorry, but these perfect Christians wear me out for the simple reason being their performance is all a sham. Wow.
No, I love it. I love it. I've known people like that.
Yeah, we have a few come in here, and you always see them. It's like, they've got this big grin on their face, and their eyes are wide open, and their eyebrows are arched, and it's like, it's a great day to be with the Lord, right? And,
I always play this game. Okay, what's wrong with them? What are they hiding from, right? I mean, nobody has a perfect life, right? I don't care who you are. So when you pretend you do, then you're really hiding something.
Exactly. Well, Robert goes on and talks about a woman who is exposed as not the perfect Christian she puts forward here. Listen to this. Well, actually, here's the setup. His wife got a call from this woman, and it went right to voicemail. So the woman, Miss Perfect Christian, is leaving a voicemail here, okay, and she forgot she was being recorded and went off like a civil defense siren, Robert says, when her kids did or said something in the background, and quote, "What followed was pure honesty." When the woman realized she was still being recorded, re-entered the sugary, perfect pitch voice again with the admission of a less than ideal day. Gotcha.
This is an irritant of mine, things that bother me. And that is oftentimes people dance around issues. Mm-hmm. They don't really look at it honestly and openly. Mm-hmm. They just dance around. And Christians are notorious for that. Why? Because they don't want to be associated with sin or sinful attitude. But overall, they're probably doing the same kinds of things they accuse others of doing, right?
That's my experience. Yes. I mean, I went through those types of things in my life, the sin issues. But it's really interesting, like you said, some people deny. They're like trouble deniers or difficulty deniers, because even sickness deniers, I get these people too. It's like, oh man, I'm feeling lousy today. I got a cough. I've got an achy. Don't say that, brother, because now you're just calling down on yourself sickness. We must deny it and it shall flee. And I'm going, that is not biblical.
Well, that is the prosperity gospel. That's right. How they train people, that you just don't think negative, you don't make any confession. And oftentimes the kind of people that you're talking about, the perfect Christians, come out of that background.
Exactly. Well, and the thing that we all have to realize as Christians, and you and I have talked about this in the past too, is life is not smooth sailing, and it shouldn't be expected to be smooth sailing. That's just life. Life is full of troubles. And any Christian, in my humble opinion, who paints the picture that their victorious life in Jesus is peaches and cream is at best immature, or he's just yanking our chain, right? Or, as you said, they're in gross self-deception on this. Nobody has a perfect, trouble-free life.
I've said this before in our conversation and in our study, that God tests the hearts. Well, if he tests the heart, there's going to be some failure or whatever, but he's testing you to see if you really have that perfect Christian outlook.
Well, and you're right, because if I recall, and this is probably a paraphrase in Proverbs where it says, the furnace is for gold and the crucible is for silver, so God tests a man's heart. And it's true. It's like, furnaces aren't pleasant. They're hot. And so are crucibles. Crucibles are that little metal plate, that bowl that you heat up really hot that melts silver and pulls the dross out. Well, that's the equivalent to trouble in a person's life. It's when things really heat up that people melt down, and then that dross comes to the top. So for people to deny trouble in their lives, they're actually, in a sense, denying God's work in their lives.
They're very self-deceived. But you're going to show us and tell us about the examples.
Yeah, going through the scriptures, I'm just kind of thinking about this whole idea of perfect Christians. Well, if you want to get to perfection, why don't we go back to Adam and Eve? They were perfect people in a perfect environment, and what happened to them? They fell. And then they started going through troubles. Do you think us as fallen people who are being perfected through the work of God are going to fare any better? That we're going to be able to get out of life without troubles? Another example, just thinking through the Bible, all these Bible characters. What about Noah? Okay, I like the way he's described. Noah found favor with the Lord. That's Genesis 6:8. Why? Because he was a righteous man, blameless among his contemporaries. Noah walked with God. Blameless among those he lived, huh?
Well, yes, but he smelled like animals. But
yeah, that's exactly right. Well, that's true. Anyway, I wanted to say something, but I had to censor myself there. Anyway, yes, perfect Christian, if I'm talking to you, we are righteous in Jesus. But if righteous, blameless, walked with God Noah had trouble, what makes us think we'll avoid them? What about Abraham? He's the friend of God. He's Mr. Trust credited to him as righteous by God. He's told to sacrifice his son Isaac, and he has no idea, amazing Larry, what God has in mind. According to the Bible, Abraham was convinced he was going to lose his son. God's promises, any hope for the future, would be killed by his own hand by God's command. Yep. no troubles there whatsoever, right?
Right.
Okay, he had to wrestle with the fact of how God was going to fulfill a promise through a dead son. Now, I'm sure that didn't weigh on his mind at all or rake over his emotions. Okay, amazing, Larry. What about Jonah?
Well, I love Jonah, but just like Noah smelled like animals, he smelled like fish.
Exactly. Now, it's amazing because he was a tried and true prophet. He received God's word, and it was dead on for Nineveh, which was basically the upshot of his prophecy. In so many days, Nineveh, because you're so evil, God's going to come in and smite thee. But Jonah had a little bit of a problem. He didn't want to go to Nineveh because if they repented, then God wouldn't smite them, and he was an Israelite and would love to see Assyria smited. But God says, get thee hence anyway. Jonah rebelled, and you know the story. He winds up in the belly of the fish. So here he is, Mr. Tried and True Prophet, and rather than eating sushi, he's riding in it. For 3 days in total darkness, without a watch or Candy Crush or the internet to while away the hours. He doesn't know how long that's going to last or if he's going to outlast it. Okay? He's in stomach acid. Okay, yeah, no trouble there whatsoever,
Oh, no.
right?
Oh,
Okay. Now, what about other perfect men and women who are loved and approved by God? Here's my favorite out of all of them, King David.
Oh, absolutely.
He
He
was-
was screwed up on everything, and his family and his ruling. I mean, he was a mess.
He was, and yet he's called the man after God's heart. So let's look at his life. I wonder if there was any trouble in David's life. Okay, let's see. Besides being a man of war and having to put up with losing men in battle and the difficulties that his nation was going through with the plague and enemies attacking, personally, he lost a days-old firstborn son because of his sin. There was family sexual abuse when one of his sons raped his half-sister, and then that sister's brother kills his half-brother who did it, and then that son who killed the brother then usurps his throne, and then David is driven into the wilderness, and in a battle in the wilderness over the throne, David gets word that his son Absalom has been killed. Yep, no troubles there whatsoever. And this was the man that we often as Christians look at as a paragon of virtue and perfection. His life was a mess.
I don't know if you said this, but David had the affair with Bathsheba. Then he killed her husband.
To have it covered up.
Really?
Yeah, he tells Joab, as we would say now, he tells Joab to let Uriah, her husband, get close to the battle near the wall of a city. You don't do that. That's a death sentence, which is exactly what he wanted.
Yes.
Okay, so David literally, through his foolishness, brought all the trouble on himself, but yet he went through all of this trouble naturally that comes through life. It is amazing that there are actually Christians out there who think that life is perfect now, and once we receive Jesus, everything's going to be, as I said, peaches and cream and smooth sailing throughout the rest of life. But that's not the biblical record. You want a real panorama of this? Go to the book of Hebrews, okay?
Okay.
You go to the book of Hebrews in chapter 11. It's known as the Hall of Faith. Listen to what it says here, Hebrews 11, 36 through 38. Others experienced mockings and scourgings, as well as bonds and imprisonment. They were stoned, they were sawed in two, and by the way, you know who that was?
I know that one thing for sure. They hurt after they were in two.
Exactly. This is, by tradition, the prophet Isaiah.
Okay.
Some of the most beautiful, accurate prophecies we've received in our Bible came through Isaiah. He prophesied during King Hezekiah's reign. Well, he was a righteous king, but his son Manasseh was a total dirtbag. And there's another story that we may talk about sometime in there. But Manasseh, according to tradition, didn't like what Isaiah was prophesying. So he had Isaiah put into a hollow log and sawn in two. Ew. Okay, let's go on with Hebrews 11. They died by the sword. They wandered about in sheepskins and goatskins, destitute, afflicted, and mistreated. The world was not worthy of them. They wandered in deserts and on mountains, hiding in caves and holes in the ground. Oh, yeah, absolutely trouble-free lives, right? And all of these people were commended by God as people of faith and recorded in the Hall of Faith. And yet look at what they lived in. And so we think we're going to avoid troubles? Amazing, Larry. You and I both know life just brings trouble. Troubles are a given. If we don't like those troubles, we have to blame our first parents, because Job writes in Job 5:7, humans are born for trouble as surely as sparks fly upward. You ever watch a fire, a campfire?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Sure.
You don't see sparks going down.
Yeah, right.
The surety is they go up.
But Jesus told us something about that too, didn't he? I mean, didn't he come to us and say something about each day
has troubles of its own.
Yeah. So,
exactly.
Yeah.
He's talking about when you're troubled by the lack of food or the cares of life or a lack of clothing or a place to live. He says, look at the flowers. Look at the birds. Don't worry. Every day has troubles of its own. Okay, you know what that says to me?
We need a cup of coffee, but we shouldn't worry about it.
Exactly. So would you please go get me a refill if it's not too much trouble?
Well done. Rather impressive.
We got to be twice as perfect as anybody else.
Oh my gosh, this Truth Barista is really great. I have learned so much from him, so I have been inviting more of my friends to join me in coming here to the coffee shop. Great coffee and great conversation.
Well, Truth Barista, I'm so glad 2020 is gone and we're moving through 2021. And you've got all kinds of things that you're doing. Why don't you tell us about it?
We have got the Truth Barista podcast that everybody is telling me. I'm getting all sorts of responses in the email saying they love it. And we have the Frothy Thoughts blog, a lot of really fascinating articles, current events, biblical insights. And we're adding a new feature called Cruising Through the Bible. I will walk with you through the Bible. In fact, I may hit the gas pedal a little bit, and we're going to zip through the Bible, summarizing sections as we go with a little insight for your day. And it's actually a daily thing, so you can come back to the website of highbeamministry.com every single day and get fresh material. Why don't you become a partner with us? Hit that donate button on the screen there, or you can also sign up for regular notices every time a podcast or an article drops. We're so anxious to have you join us here in 2021.
Hoo-ah! Hoo-ah! Hoo-ah!
This is the Truth Barista, your link to how God defines our day.
Well, Truth Barista, so far we've been talking about, hey, listen, we're all going to have these troubles, so get over it, right? But there is a positive side to troubles. They help us. How do they help?
Well, God allows troubles to come into our lives because troubles work a good in us as nothing else can. Okay, remember when we talked about the furnace and the crucible? Okay, they do their work through heat. And that causes things to melt down. And when things get melted down, such as gold and silver, not only does the dross, which is the mixture, the impurities, come to the surface, well, that enables those things to be skimmed off, leaving a more purified and more precious product behind. And our faith is likened to gold. And so God allows these troubles to come into our lives to kind of heat things up a little bit. And when things heat up, we begin to see in our reactions the dross, the crud, the impurity come to the top. Then God points it out and we go, I need to get rid of that kind of stuff in my life. And what comes behind that is better character, a stronger trust in God. So really, troubles do a work in us that really nothing else can.
Well, look at the lion's den, right? In Daniel.
Right.
I mean, if he hadn't gone through that experience, how would he know God could shut the mouths of lions?
And look at the testimony he had
Absolutely.
for King Darius, who put him down there. And I love this line I once heard from somebody. He says, you can't have a testimony without a test.
Ooh. Without a lion.
Exactly. And I'm not lying. Yeah. Very good. Okay. Well, let me give you another verse here I really like. One of my favorites comes from James chapter 1, verses 2 through 4. James says, consider it a great joy. Okay. Keep that in mind. Consider it a great joy, my brothers and sisters. What? whenever you experience various trials, because you know that the testing of your faith produces endurance, and let endurance have its full effect, so that you may be mature and complete, lacking nothing. And by the way, the very next subject James addresses is wisdom. Gee, almost like troubles cause us to ask for wisdom, which benefits us. Yeah, go figure, right? The Apostle Peter writes to the Jesus followers who are dispersed across the Roman Empire in 1 Peter 1. I like what he says. You rejoice in this. Well, what's the this? Well, previously wrote, you being guarded by God's power through faith for a salvation that is ready to be revealed in the last time. You rejoice in this, even though now, for a short time, if necessary, you suffer grief in various trials. Here's the question. Why? So that the proven character of your faith, more valuable than gold, which, though perishable, is refined by fire, may result in praise, glory, and honor at the revelation of Jesus Christ. Our Heavenly Father, Amazing Larry, allows us to experience trouble, to produce endurance and maturity, to prove our faith, which will bring praise, honor, and glory to Jesus. Sounds like a pretty good thing, doesn't it?
Well, if an athlete doesn't run or exercise or train, how in the world will they ever compete?
Exactly. And nobody can tell me, no athlete, no physical trainer can say, I really love beating the snot out of my body, lifting these weights and running these laps and all this to get better at it because, it sure is pleasant. No, it's not. It's hard work. It's pain. But as they say, no pain, no gain.
Michael Jordan was asked one time how come he was so great. And he said, because I failed and I failed and I failed and I failed. And that made me great.
Exactly. And the troubles that come in are those things that you can either succeed or you can fail, but they still bring great benefit to us if we approach them well. Now, we can avoid some troubles. Those are the ones that we usually, make for ourselves, right? If we have wisdom, we can avoid those. What I'm talking about is this. I'm talking about those unforeseen, gobsmacking, stunning, mind-numbing, personal world roils and upheaval troubles that blindside us and leave us wondering if we'll ever see relief. But even Paul acknowledges that. He says in 2 Corinthians 4, he says, therefore we do not give up, even though our outer person is being destroyed, our inner person is being renewed day by day. Our momentary light affliction. What? He's talking about our bodies being destroyed, and he says it's a momentary light affliction. Why? It's producing for us an absolutely incomparable eternal weight of glory. So in other words, he's saying compared to eternity, what the troubles you're experiencing now, they pale in comparison with what's coming. The key to this is, and I think Paul's got it, your focus.
Well, and that's what I was going to ask, because now where do we go with this? Okay, our focus. A focus on the problem or on our Lord? Where do we shift?
I think Psalm 23 gives us the focus right there. The psalmist says about God, He renews my life. He leads me along right paths for His name's sake. And even when I go through the darkest valley, I fear no danger, for you are with me. Your rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Did you catch that, Amazing Larry? He leads us along right paths, and sometimes those right paths go through the darkest valley, the darkest valley of troubles. But we've got a hand holder who's walking along with us. We can fear nothing, but we often do fear because our trust in God isn't perfect yet. Okay, so in the meantime, we know that there's a way through troubles. I've kind of jotted down here on my notes on this some of the ways we can get through it. And the first thing we need to go through with God. One of Jesus' nicknames is Emmanuel, God with us. And we know now the name of the handholder in Psalm 23. It's Jesus, Emmanuel, God with us. Now, the second thing to help us through troubles, and I've relied on you for this a lot around here. You have been such an amazing help and support for the things that I go through on a day-to-day basis. We draw support and guidance from other not-so-perfect Christians, and I really don't know any more not-so-perfect Christian than you, Amazing Larry.
Wow. Now, whoa.
Okay, I'll buy you lunch.
Well,
okay,
no,
so-
that's in lieu of the raise, I think. But go ahead.
No, you'll get your raise. I'll buy you lunch too. Okay, but what I'm trying to say is there are a lot of not so perfect Christians out there who really have the been there, done that type of a thing. So when you walk into a time of trouble, it's really nice to have people who understand walking right along with you.
Right.
And they're the physical hand that supports the one hand that the other hand, the Lord, isn't holding. Here's a third one. I find help via other people who aren't Christians.
Wow. That's kind of interesting because usually, Truth Barista, you're about truth and you're about belief. How so?
A lot of Christians, we find ourselves living in this very insulated world of other Christians. But what's really fascinating is there are a lot of people out there who don't know the Lord, who aren't Christians, but they know us and they love us and they want to support us. So we can't spurn them when they come alongside. Man, take the help. It's kind of like that old adage, any port in a storm. Right? And when I'm going through troubles, man, I'll take, whether you're a Christian or not, if you're there to love and support me, thank you. That is a wonderful thing to have. Okay, here's a fourth one that really encourages me. Ecclesiastes, that book has been on my mind a lot lately because of changes that, I'm kind of going through in life, etc. And they're exciting changes, but frankly, they carry a lot of troubles with them.
Well, anxiety for sure.
Exactly. Now, Ecclesiastes was written by King Solomon. He had everything he wanted and no reason to be troubled about anything else. And yet, Ecclesiastes is his ode to the troubles and uselessness of life, despite having everything. The wise perspective Solomon shares is that changes happen with time. So what I'm trying to say this is, few troubles in this life are permanent. As there is an occasion for everything and a time for every activity under heaven, so there's a time for troubles and a time to be free of troubles. And sometimes it just takes time.
Well, Truth Barista, it doesn't surprise me that Solomon had problems. He had 1,000 women in his life, wives and concubines. I mean, come on. Of all people.
So what are you saying?
I'm just saying, it's a lot of women in his life.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, I cannot make those jokes anymore. My wife would be, okay, moving right along here. Okay, finally, the last thing that I have found that really encourages me at times like this, the best news of all, is that there is an end point to all troubles for those who embrace Jesus. Amazing, Larry, there is a day that is coming when all troubles will be wiped away along with the tears that they bring. And I love Revelation 21:4. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes. Death will be no more. Grief, crying, and pain will be no more because the previous things have passed away. It's such a beautiful verse. There's coming a time when it's not oblivion, but it's eternal relief from all of the things that this world has laid upon us. And we're finally laid to rest in the earth while our soul gets to be with the Lord forever. We don't need to pretend to be unaffected by troubles. Troubles are not a sign of weakness or imperfection. The good news is we have one who is perfect, who can dispel the troubles and walk us through them.
Well, I just love that piece that you just said. Troubles are not a sign of weakness. And I think that's what happens with a lot of people. They think if I have troubles, then my faith isn't right, or I'm not right, or there's sin in my life. So as we've said, so you've been very clear on that. It's not a sign of weakness or a sign of shame.
And it's not a sign of sin either. Right. Now, it can be, because like I said before, we can get ourselves into a whole lot of trouble that's not needed. Just look at David, right? But if we are wise and we're walking through life the best we can, it doesn't guarantee we'll be free of troubles because, frankly, the biblical record is we will encounter troubles. But the truth is we have a hand holder who will walk us through those troubles and get us through to the other side successfully. Why? Because he is unchangeable. He is steadfast. He is the rock of our salvation. He is the assurance for our soul. He is the one who makes all troubles dissolve over time, and eventually those troubles will be no more.
Well, Truth Barista, in spite of all the problems and anxieties that you're going through today, you delivered on the truth, as always.
And the word that keeps going through my head this morning is, Truth Barista, let not your heart be troubled. This is Jay, your Truth Barista. Thanks for listening to the Truth Barista podcast. The best way to find out when a new podcast drops is through RSS feed. Go to our website, look for the RSS button, press it, and then enter your email. You'll be notified when a new podcast drops. Thanks for listening.